Well, we can officially say good afternoon because this is an afternoon episode for both myself and my co-host. Welcome to episode number 143 of Material Issues. I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. It's 4 p.m. Eastern time here on the East Coast, just outside of Philadelphia, where it's a beautiful day and getting even better. We're going to be in the low 60s next week, almost Southern California weather here in South Jersey, but nice to see my co-host tonight, the president of the president of the International Pop Overthrow Festival, Mr. David Bash. David, how the heck are you tonight?
I'm doing okay, Mark. How are you?
I'm great. You know,
it wouldn't be almost Southern California weather. It would because we've been in the high 50s, low 60s.
Yeah.
We had some more rain the last few days. Wasn't the storm that they predicted, fortunately.
Right. Yeah.
But decent amount of rain. But it looks like we're going to have clear skies for the foreseeable future.
Nice.
And temperatures should get up into the low 70s for a bit. For a couple of days, and then back down to 60 or so.
There's Andy. Andy's from the UK.
There he is. Good evening,
Hello,
Andy.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to our good friend Lisa Michaels Richards. I had posted online the other day about a complicated recipe, jokingly, that I wanted somebody to attempt and post a video of what it tasted like. And it was from a recipe book from my mom's collection from 1958. And it was simply equal parts peanut butter and ketchup mixed with corn chips. And I laughed. I said, I showed the picture of the recipe. Who will actually try it and post a video? And Lisa did a video of making it. Tom tasted it, loved it. Lisa tasted it, and she was like, no. Grilled cheese sandwich, yes. No.
I don't. I love peanut butter and I love ketchup, but I don't know that I would love them together.
It's surprisingly interesting, and
I'm sure it's interesting. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
You have to watch Lisa's video. Pull up Lisa's video on Facebook, and you'll see even her son's like, "That's really good." And she said, "What is it? What does it taste like?" And he said, "It tastes like something." But he liked it a lot. But every week you post your watch. Here's my latest watch, brand new. I'm gonna show you a little more. This is actually a watch from the Sky Watch Company. It says "Love."
I'm liking
it. It's actually made by or designed by Chris Martin of Coldplay to benefit emotional well-being curriculum in grade school through college.
Wow.
Only 1,000 pieces made. It's Swiss made, and each bevel design with the blue resin is individual and unique.
Wow.
So it's kind of cool. It says
I'm
"Love."
liking that.
Nice chronograph. Only 1,000 of them made, and that's my new watch purchase. I've gotten so many compliments in just the color, cover, and the fact that the word "love" is right there. It's very cool. And Chris Martin, Coldplay did something nice. I've never really been a Coldplay fan, but putting his name on something this cool. And for
a good cause, absolutely
well-deserved good cause. Yeah.
I have not been able to take this one off since I got it last week.
Because is it stuck? Oh, okay.
No, my Swiss watch company Tremor in purple. I'm loving this so much that I even put on this purple matching shirt.
You and your matching shirt and watches.
It's important. It's important to accessorize.
It is.
Only with me, I start with a watch and accessorize off of that. And most people do it the other way around, but I'm very strange. What can I tell you? All right, so I got a drink here actually for you.
Right. Okay.
Rena found this at the supermarket.
Oh, nice.
Canada Dry Fruit Splash Cherry Ginger Ale.
Never heard of it.
Amazingly, the California actually got something before the rest of the country. Usually it doesn't happen. The cool thing about this is it has a splash of lime in it as well.
Nice.
That gives it some nice zest. This is good stuff.
Congratulations on that.
I almost bit it.
There you have it. Fruit Splash Canada Dry for promotional advertisement purposes. Please give us the contact.
I know John Borak is watching, so I'll have to tell him this was not promo soda, John.
It is a great drink to wash down a peanut butter and ketchup sandwich.
It would certainly help. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. There we go.
Anyway, so just one more thing before we bring on our guest. I posted the dates of International Pop Overthrow, dates and locations, just posted them on Facebook.
Yep.
I believe we have 8 at the moment. Let me check that to make sure. Yeah, we've got Chicago, Liverpool, Copenhagen, LA, Vancouver, Boston, New York, and Toronto.
Nice.
That's so far. I think we'll add San Diego, and I don't know what else, but something else may come along. So I'd like to at least get it back to 10 so we can keep our streak of 10 or more cities since probably about 2009 or 10.
Yeah.
So I'd like to keep that going. But anyway, very excited about that. I haven't posted. I sent the Chicago lineups to the bands playing IPO Chicago. So we should post that. We should be posting that on our website in a couple of days. So very much looking forward to going back to Chicago and Montrose Saloon. It's going to be a great, great lineup. So anyway, that's enough of that.
I just want to give a quick shout out. Billy Paliselli of Artful Dodger just checked in. Good health, my friend. All good news about your health, and we always keep pulling for you. Love you, my friend.
Yeah, sorry, Bill. The one episode I wasn't able to make was the one you were on. So I regret not having met you, but hopefully one day. And yeah, continued good health for sure.
What do we got going on tonight? I'm pretty excited about this guest to see.
Well, this is one of those lovely things coming full circle stories. Sometime last year, I saw a commercial with a very familiar song for a product called Ozempic. And as it turned out, I probably could use it because my A1C ain't doing so great these days. Actually, it went from pre-diabetic back to normal. So in my last blood work, but it's kind of on, it's right now on the at the precipice. So I have to be careful. But anyway, I see this commercial and I hear a very familiar song, and it turns out that it is the music to a huge hit from 1975. Well, I guess it was a hit in 74 in the UK, but 75 in the US. A song called Magic, which pretty much everybody listening remembers. And we're not talking about Olivia Newton-John here. So just not that that's a bad song or anything. It's fine, but it's not the one we're talking about. And I dare say I like this one better.
Yes.
Anyway, so it uses the theme from Magic and with advertising Ozempic. And wouldn't you know that the lead singer for the band who had a hit with Magic is also singing the Ozempic song. So hopefully this has rewarded him in many, many ways. Anyway, he is our guest, the main man of Pilot, the great, great band from Edinburgh who had 4 amazing albums in the 70s, including the one that was the least heralded called Two's a Crowd, which was reissued on CD in this box set. It was awesome. About time because it's such a good record.
Yes, it is.
But this man has done a lot of other things. He's worked with, among many other people, Alan Parsons Project, Kate Bush, and he was a Bay City roller at one time. Yes, indeed. But he's put out a lot since the demise of Pilot. Not only has he worked with a lot of people, but he's put out a lot of records on his own. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that as well. But anyway, we're really glad to have him here as our guest. We're honored, in fact. So without further ado, would you please give a huge Material Issues welcome to Mr. David Paton.
And there he is.
Yes.
Hi, David. Nice to see you.
You too. Now, are those the albums that are hanging on your wall? Are those 2 Pilot albums, or are they something else?
They're not. Although I do have a few over here. These are Elton John albums. Elton was a very generous man. Anytime he, when disc CD players came along, Elton would make sure all the band got a copy of it. If he was reading a book that he really liked, he would give you a copy of it. And when we finished an album, he always made sure that we were presented with gold discs or platinum discs, whatever it may be. So I did 4 albums with him.
Wow.
The 4 discs on the walls.
Wow.
Which albums did you do with him?
Ice on Fire was the first one. Red Strikes Back. Leather Jackets.
Oh, yeah.
Live in Australia with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. That was a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Wonderful.
See, again, we talked briefly before going live, and it's like everybody's going to know David Paton, Pilot, and Magic, but your resume with who you've worked with since all of that is absolutely amazing. And right there, you just drop, well, I did 4 albums with Elton John. Not a whole lot of people can sit here and say, yeah, I did 4 albums with Elton John, and those are the gold albums back there to prove it. It's all
I can say I bought more than 4 albums. Though. That's as far as I can go.
I do pinch myself sometimes and think, did that really happen? I describe my time with Elton as being in Disneyland for 3 years. It was kind of like that,
And, before we get into maybe some early history as to how you got into music, David, post-Pilot, you did a lot of things. And we mentioned you worked with the Alan Parsons Project and Kate Bush and Camel and Elton and even McCartney. What really garnered you the attention for, say, Alan Parsons Project to start this ball rolling? Was it just your experience with Pilot, or were you making connections with your bass playing, your vocal ability? What was the spark that really just got you on everybody's radar?
A lot of it just seemed to come my way. Well, not just me, the whole of Pilot. I think musically, people enjoyed what we were doing. They could hear that Ian Bairnson was a great guitar player. They listened to the bass, and eventually producers were getting in touch with us and saying, are you guys available as a unit to do some work? And it was also fortunate that when Pilot signed to EMI, EMI owned Abbey Road Studios, and they gave us a list of producers and said, pick a producer, pick an engineer who is aspiring to be a producer from this list. There was 10 engineers on the list. I noticed the name Alan Parsons, and of course there was a Pink Floyd connection. There was always a McCartney connection as well. So that was the name I picked, and he produced Pilot, hence the Alan Parsons Project and Pilot being used for that. But also, other people cottoned on to it. Other producers started getting in touch with me personally saying, are you available to do a session? And things weren't going so well with Pilot after 3 years or so. Yeah. And I just seemed to follow that direction quite happily, because I was never comfortable being the front man in a band. And to work behind the scenes I just thought I'd found my niche here doing that kind of stuff.
Was Norman Smith on that list of producers?
No, he wasn't. I think he was quite established by then. That was 1974, as you know. Norman Smith, I remember him well.
Wow. So really,
by the way, Norman Smith is Hurricane Smith, who had the huge hit "Oh Babe, What Would You Say" in the U.S.
Yeah, it's a big hit in the UK too.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So really, you were at right place, right time, and picked the right name out of a list, and it all snowballed from there. Because had you picked another of the 9 that were remaining, who knows where it would have gone.
Well, there you go. Little thing that you do you don't know what the consequences of that would be. Whether you call it coincidence or what, I don't know. But
well, talent has a way of rising to the top in most situations. But of a lot of people we've interviewed on the show, a lot of it boils down to a decision that they made at a certain point with a certain person, or made a certain contact quite by accident or quite by luck. And they just go, I don't know what happened after that. It just went crazy. And
the great baseball owner Branch Rickey once made a statement: luck is the residue of design. And I think in the case, you picked the right guy with Alan Parsons. So it wasn't just luck. You did pick the right guy.
We did. And I noticed you mentioned the Bay City Rollers earlier. I chose to leave that band just as they were signing their major recording deal. I just thought to myself, I didn't want to be famous as a Bay City Roller, and I'd rather just go into anonymity rather than do that. Little did I know that the Pilot were just waiting to happen.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, did you have an inkling then that the Bay City Rollers were going to become a huge band?
Yeah. They were already huge in Scotland before anything happened with recording. They had a huge following and screaming girls everywhere who would follow us all over the country, hire a bus and follow the band. So it was massive, but it just wasn't. Musically, it wasn't for me.
Well, if you had stayed with a band, Nick Lowe would have had to have sang David Packed It In if the We Got Pat McGlynn. So you affected a lyric there.
All right.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that you say that they were already huge and being screamed out all across the country. And you're young at the time. I scratch my head and say, what wouldn't you have liked about that? But as somebody who doesn't want to be the center of attention and who wants to focus more musically, I can see that side of the coin as well, where it was
more a musical thing. I was listening to bands like Genesis and Yes and King Crimson, and I felt like I was a million miles away from the Bay City Rollers and what they were listening to, what they wanted to achieve. And I just thought, no, music was more important to me than anything, any kind of fame or success. I wanted to be successful as a musician. I didn't necessarily want the fame to come with it. So that's why I stay falling into the session.
Well, when Pilot was, when you were at your biggest, when Magic and January were at the top of the charts, were you able to walk around places, go into restaurants? People did know you.
Yeah, they knew me. Yeah, I couldn't socialize in the way that I used to. Go out with my wife or my mates for a drink in the pub. Nah, that was out of the question. Or going to the cinema, anything. Yeah, for a little while it was out of the question, and I wasn't very comfortable with it.
Is it still happen to you today, David? Is it still happen?
No. 50 years have gone by. Nobody knows.
If you had your choice, would you like it to be the way it was? Or are you more comfortable? I think you're more comfortable with the way you are today. Yeah.
I'm very happy the way it is. Yeah.
Well, the Ozempic commercial may get you on magazine covers, so be careful.
Well, when
AARP.
They've been using my since 2019, and it was only last year that they got in touch with me and said, we would love to hear the original voice on this recording. Before then, the recordings you're hearing were all session players.
Right.
And they approached me and said to me, look, I know you recorded it in Abbey Road. We'd love to go to Abbey Road again and re-record the Ozempic commercial. And that's what we did this time last year. They flew over from the States and we had Abbey Road booked for the day, Abbey Road 3. And we had a fantastic day, but they had me, walking across the zebra crossing and walking up and down the street where it says Abbey Road. It was a bit,
holding a bottle of Ozempic. But it's interesting because I did find out. I didn't know originally when I heard that you actually sang re-recorded and sang it, because you would think, Magic, the original, is such a long time ago. Well, this is obvious. Your voice is still fantastic. Obviously, there's studio
Absolutely.
helping, but it's still great. It's still wonderful. And
dropped at a semitone.
yeah, dropped a semitone.
Yeah, but it was hard to hear that. And,
it's great. It's absolutely wonderful. Getting back to how you started, though. You were born in Edinburgh or close by? Yeah, Edinburgh. Did you come from a musical family? Did you have parents and siblings that kind of got you into music?
Oh, my sister can't sing for toffee. No, tone deaf completely.
And here she is live on Material Issues.
I'm gonna have to remember that phrase. Can't sing for toffee. That's a good one.
But my dad was a singer. He loved opera. He used to sing. We have the Scottish singers that go around singing traditional Scottish songs, doing the address to the haggis at Burns Night. My dad did all that kind of stuff. He wore the kilt, and he did all that. My mother was a dancer. She won a few awards as a ballroom dancer. So it was kind of there for me to slot into,
Were you were the right age you came of age when the Beatles started happening.
Well,
what kind of an impact did they have on you?
Yeah, well, if the Beatles hadn't happened, Magic would never have been written. That's how much they meant to me. I idolized them. I'm lucky enough I can listen to music. I trained my ear to be able to listen to songs and take the chords from the song mainly by listening. And the Beatles were my ground. Every album that came out, I sat religiously learning every single song, every inversion. And I even learned how to play the claw hammer, listening to Dear Prudence, stuff like that.
Wow.
It all came from the Beatles. My biggest influence, although I did say I loved early Genesis and the musicality of it. It just blew my mind.
Well, as David said, it's kind of right in your wheelhouse, because I guess when the Beatles hit 63, 64, you were middle of your teenage years. If I'm doing the calculation right without giving away your age perfectly, but I mean, that had to have been right at the, if you were playing anything at that point, whether you had piano lessons or experience with guitar whatsoever, that, as we've talked to a lot of people we've interviewed, that was the moment that they just said, this is it. This is what I'm doing. And was that kind of an aha moment for you as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was lucky enough to catch a bit of Elvis and realized that I was drawn to that music as well.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was a police woman who lived next door to us. She babysat for my mum and dad one time. I must have been maybe 10 years old. And she had an Elvis collection, and she played the Elvis collection. And I just kept saying, play it again, over and over and over, Elvis Presley. So that's the root really of where it came from. And you heard that influence in the Beatles music as well.
Oh, sure. So your middle of your teenage years, were you doing anything musically at the time? Did you start in high school bands? Did you have mates that you were starting to do stuff with?
A high school band. We were called the Elements. And with
a very 50s doo-wop name. Yeah.
I learned when I was 11 years old. My parents took a trip to Spain, and I heard the guy playing a Spanish guitar. And I said to my parents, I want a guitar. I want to play a guitar. I wasn't very academic at school, so when I picked up the guitar and realized I could get a tune out of it, I just became totally focused on that. And, to the extent of my mates knocking on the door, you coming out? No, I'm playing my guitar. From the age of 11.
I Was 11 is a song by the Rollers, so it all came full circle.
Yeah, but at the age of 14, I was in a school band with a friend of mine. Lucky enough, I learned to play guitar first. And he loved guitar. He also loved bass guitar. And I took a shine into bass guitar as well. So we would play together and swap. that's where it all started. And for Pilot, I was the bass player, but when with the Bay City Rollers, I was the lead guitarist.
Okay.
Were you writing songs in your late teens at that point, or were you doing covers mostly?
I moved to London with a band when I was 17, a band called the Beachcombers, and we got a deal with CBS actually.
Right.
And they encouraged us to write songs because they presented us with songs that were, a lot of them were Italian songs that were going to be, they were going to have English lyrics to them. They weren't, they weren't quite hit material, but that's what we were presented with. And when we complained that, we're not having any hits, they said, well, write your own songs. So I was 17 at that time. I don't believe I actually wrote a song that I thought I've written a good song until I was about 19 or 20 years old. I wrote a song called Just a Smile, and that was really early on in my career. And I thought, oh, I've written a song here. This is a good song. I thought so.
I have to say, I actually really like The Animal in Me. You had said you'd moved to London by then, so I was going to ask you. The Animal in Me is on CBS, which is the same label that that another great Scottish band, the Marmalade, were on.
Yeah.
Did you ever do shows with them?
Not at all. And I sang a song on the Alan Parsons project called "What Goes Up," and the singer, I've forgotten his name, the singer with the Marmalade. He sang the chorus to that song.
Dean Ford?
Dean Ford.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, he sang I sang the verse and he sang the chorus. Unfortunately, we weren't in the studio at the same time, so I never even got a chance to meet him.
Wow. And you said so early on with the Beachcombers, when you signed with CBS, they were giving you Italian songs?
The Animal in Me is a perfect example. It was called Ricordi di me. That was the Italian title. And
Never heard that word.
That was my favorite. But you know what? It's interesting. I'm talking David Bash now because I don't know which David to. I'm going to look at you, David. Remember when we had Middle of the Road on the show, and they talked about when they first were getting noticed that they were given Italian songs, and that's kind of how it wound around to them re-recording Chirpy Chirpy Cheep Cheep, which is amazing. You brought that up, that CBS was handing you Italian songs.
That would have been RCA with
RCA with
Road, right?
Yeah, but it's the same thing. They were feeding them Italian songs, and they were like, "This isn't working except in Italy." That's amazing.
Encouraging, for them to say, write your own songs, and the Beatles were doing it as well. So, all the influences were there to have a crack at it anyway.
Now, the single I had mentioned prior to us going on the air, it was in California. There was this bin of 7-inch records, and I see something on the EMI label, and right there I perk up because I figure, well, this is probably going to be promising. Song called Ra-Ta-Ta-Ta-Ta by Scott Schmidt. And I said, I don't know who this is, but that title and that band name is speaking to me, so I'm going to buy this. And then I see the other side written by Paton, and it's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so tell us about that.
There was a label manager who worked in EMI. While we were recording our first album, we would pop along. He was a good friend of our drummers, and he would pop along. He popped along one time with this recording and said, "This is a massive hit in Europe. If you record this under a pseudonym of some sort," which was Scotch Mist, and he said, "It'll be a massive hit in the UK." and I said, "Well, I'm not singing it," and so we got Stuart Tosh to sing it. Our drummer sang it.
I'm not singing it.
Yeah, it was supposed to be anonymous, and it was a bit of a giveaway putting a song of mine on the B-side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how that came about. And of course, it wasn't a hit at all. Not a glimmer of a hit. It was
no, it wasn't. And I mean, I like it, but I can see why it wasn't a hit. It didn't quite.
There's a novelty record for the, and there was a few novelty records in the 70s.
Oh yeah, that period of time, yeah. So how did how do we morph into getting together with everybody and create Pilot? How does that come about? Because as you said, Ian, what a great guitarist. Billy Lyle was in there. What, did he spend some time in the Rollers as well?
Billy Lyle did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was a strange story because the manager of the Bay City Rollers, whose name was Paton, no relation to me at all. He was the guy who would bring guys into the band. Some of them couldn't even play an instrument, but they looked good. And this was his recipe for success: get good-looking guys. Doesn't matter if they can play or not. So this happened quite a few times while I was in the Rollers for maybe a year. And within that time, there was 2 or 3 different guys brought in that couldn't play. I even remember tying a guy's cord around the handle of the amplifier, which was spotted by a few wisecracking guys down the front. Quite amusing. But Billy was one of these guys who Tam brought along and said, "This is your new keyboard player." So I said to Billy, "Okay, let's have a 12 bar and have." He said to me, "What's a 12 bar?" I thought, "Oh no, I've got another." However, what I didn't know then was that Billy was a fantastic classical piano player. And I arrived for a gig one time to the Longmuir's house, the Bay City Rollers house, and Billy was sitting on an upright piano, and he was playing a thing called Enter the Queen of Sheba, I think it's called. And I thought, who's playing the piano? It was Billy Lyle. So then we struck up a good friendship, and Billy said to me, "Look, if you want to learn to read music, I can help you." He says, "I play the flute as well. We can go to the library and get music for guitar and flute." And I was already keen on Segovia and, classical guitar in general. So that was great for me. And eventually after a year or so, I got to an intermediate level playing classical guitar. And in fact, I did a tour with Rick Wakeman called The Classical Connection, where I was playing classical guitar and he did his music in a classical style. So it came in handy for that. But eventually I left the Rollers. And as I said, I just didn't want to be a famous Bay City Roller. I'd rather not be famous. So I left the Rollers and I didn't see Billy Lyle for a while until I was heading to the library one day and he was walking out. And he said to me, "I've just got a job in a studio in Edinburgh." It was a big studio called Craig Hall Studios. They used to record a thing called the Tattoo, the Edinburgh Tattoo, and they'd have it out within a week in the shops because they had their own pressing plant. So, it was quite a comprehensive studio. It was probably 4 tracks in the 70s, but even then, that was a lot of tracks to play with. So Billy said to me, "Why don't you come down to the studio? Are you writing songs?" I said, "Yeah, I'm writing songs." He said, "Well, come down and I'll play piano for you if you play bass and guitar for me." I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And we did that, and we did it religiously over a period of a year and a half or so. Every week he would say, "Oh, I've got downtime in the studio tonight. Have you got any songs?" And I'll say, "Well, I'll write one." It was like that. And when he wrote a song, I was inspired by it, and I thought, I'll have to write a good song for the next time. It was the perfect motivation to get the songwriting, up to a decent standard. And that's where Pilot stems from. And also I used to gig with a band at night. We played 6 nights a week. And it was a function band. We just played the chart material. And the guitar player in that band was Ian Bairnson. And the drummer, he used to dip a guy called Stuart Tosh. So Stuart Tosh was our drummer in Pilot. And I just said to Stuart, "We don't have a drummer and we're recording songs in Craig Hall. Will you come down and put drums down?" And Stuart, at that time, I had written Magic. You know, I'd written Magic in 1972 or so. And when he heard that song, he says, "Oh, wow, we'll have to do something with that song." He said, "That's a hit." And he said, "I know a label manager that works in EMI. And this label manager is the very guy that brought Rat-Ta-Ta into the studio." The very same guy. Yeah, so we went down to EMI, the three of us with our demos. And as I say, Magic was on the demo tape. So was Just a Smile. January hadn't been written. And EMI just couldn't hide their enthusiasm. The general manager, the MD, just said, "Look, guys, you've got a deal if you want it." And
Wow.
You know, I wouldn't say no to EMI because they owned Abbey Road Studios. And that, for me, that was the Beatles' workshop. You know, you can't turn that down.
No, and it's great to see that enthusiasm, that they weren't being all like labeled with you and saying, we'll think about it. You know, they were really they were very honest with you. That's wonderful.
They really wanted us, and they let it show. Yeah.
Neat little side note. You talk about Abbey Road Studios, but Abbey Road Studios, the paperwork that was signed to actually buy the building and build the studios was signed about 4 miles to the east or to the west of me in Camden, New Jersey.
Wow.
Which is kind of neat because that's kind of the start of they always say Camden's the start of the music business. And you're like, yeah, but how about no? That's where they signed the paperwork to create Abbey Road Studios, was in a building 4 miles from me right here. So that's
excellent. Excellent.
Camden, New Jersey is nothing like Camden, UK. But
David, get back in here. There he is.
We lost you for a second. I said Camden, New Jersey is nothing like Camden, UK.
No.
Yeah, I was going to mention Camden, UK, but I wasn't sure if you knew where it was.
Oh yeah.
Oh no. Well, I do this festival. I do this festival in Liverpool at the Cavern Club every year, and occasionally we would get down to London, and we actually did the festival in London for 4 years as well. So a couple of years ago, we went into Camden and walked around, and naturally, I left with about 15 records.
Of course.
So I love Camden.
Uh-huh.
And as opposed to that, Camden here in the United States is one of the most dangerous small cities in the country.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's
just so you know, David. I know you needed to know that.
Just so you know. It's a little oasis of its own. Lovely Camden, New Jersey. But there he goes. Back and forth. He's back. It's all good. Well, so Magic, you said you wrote in 1972. When you started recording that track, I mean, was that an awe moment for everybody? Like this is something special, or did it turn into something special after it was recorded and from that point?
When it was written, I didn't think it was that special. It wasn't until we got in the studio and started to add the little ideas but I heard it all in my head. I heard the la la las and the hand claps and even the guitar solo. I just knew what I could hear, and it all went down. And I think we were up to 8 track by then. So, we had a lot of room to experiment. I could double track my voice, and Stuart was playing drums at that time as well, instead of me hitting a suitcase, because that's how it was when Billy and I first started doing our demos together. So it sounded pretty comprehensive as a demo. That was exciting then as well. I think the first track we did in Abbey Road with Alan Parsons was the song Just a Smile. And I hired in a Rickenbacker guitar, a 6-string Rickenbacker. I think the model was a 360. I can't remember. Maybe it's a 4. I can't remember. Anyway, I was fascinated by Rickenbackers then. And I quadruple tracked the guitars on Just a Smile. So there was 4 guitars all playing the same thing. And when we listened back, Alan said, "We have to finish this track." He said, usually you would just do a basic drums and bass. But Alan said, let's record this song fully, and then we'll get on to the rest of the album. We did that, and we just sat listening to Alan mixing, and it maybe took him a couple of hours to get the mix the way he wanted it. But even after that, we would just keep saying, play it again, play it again. You know what it's like when you're in a band and you
Oh yeah.
it's song and it's happening. And that to me was the sound of Pilot. You know, it sounded unique. It sounded new and fresh. And Pilot, that was a stamp.
So much because of Ian's guitar playing. I mean, you hear that and you know it's Pilot immediately.
Oh yeah.
It's a
Yeah, same
signature.
with Alan Parsons. You know it's
Oh, yeah.
it's Ian Bernson.
And so Just a Smile is the first single, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we had high hopes for it, but it didn't do so well. Didn't do as well as we thought. And then we released Magic, and that didn't do as well in the UK as it did in the States. It was number 11 in the UK. And then we re-released Just a Smile after Magic, and it went to number 31. So yeah, there wasn't a great deal of enthusiasm for it, but
There you go.
And here's the album from which it comes.
yeah.
Now, interesting, in the UK, it's called From the Album of the Same Name, and in the US, it's just self-titled. How did that happen? Do you know?
I think that must have been the US. Maybe they just didn't like the name. You know, maybe they
A lot
didn't
of
like
words. Yeah.
a lot of words.
Too much for a DJ to get out over the air, you know.
Yeah, and they seem to have a bit of control over some of the album covers as well. I remember they had a leopard or something on the front of one of our album covers.
Yeah.
Out of our control completely.
How did that get there, right? And you know, and the track Magic has just become so iconic. Little kids, all the way up to very old people. You start with oh, and they'll sing right along with it amazingly. And that happens to somebody once in a billion, you know. That's got to be something where, again, you sit back and go, how'd this happen? This is amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But when, you know, I have a grandson now, he's 14 years old, and he proudly presents me to his pals. This is my granddad, and he wrote Magic.
Oh, that's really sweet.
But that's what I'm saying. Even the youngest of people know that song. It really is everywhere, and it's memorable. And
you know, even going back, it might be 20 years now, when Selena Gomez recorded it and had a decent hit with it on the Billboard charts.
Yep.
That was very flattering as well.
Yeah.
That doesn't hurt.
There are some really cool songs on the first album. A couple of my big favorite. Well, Don't Speak Loudly is a big favorite of mine. So because of that, I wanted to ask, what are your recollections of that one?
Sorry, repeat that. I didn't.
Don't Speak Loudly. What are your recollections of that song? Or do you have any?
I think that was me talking about maybe having a fling with a girl and telling her to keep her mouth shut about it. You know, that's what the whole song was about.
There's a beautiful melody in it, though.
All right.
I really like that.
Absolutely wonderful. And again, as we said, Pilot just has that signature sound. You know, you put a track on, you know it's Pilot, and that's something special when it happens. For any band that you can identify, you know, a sound, and that's fantastic. From Ian's guitar work to your bass playing. Now, would you have considered yourself a melodic bass player? I listened to some of the, you were playing bass on Alan Parsons' first 4 albums or so.
10 albums.
How many?
10
albums. Holy cow. Because I was listening to a lot of that over the last couple of days too, and I was just assuming that that's what you were doing on the album, and I was paying close attention to the bass work and whatnot. Which the things, and I guess you were doing that with Camel, and a couple of, because that went to a little bit different progressive direction from what you were normally playing. But it sounds like you're well rounded on the bass. You know what you're doing, and you could play pretty much any styles.
Well, if you listen to Mike Rutherford from Genesis, you can hear how melodic he was, or Chris Squire from Yes, some great bass lines, and that aggressive tone from the Rickenbacker. That was a huge influence on me. That's why I'm seeing with a Rickenbacker with the Pilot, it was all down to these influences and their style of playing. I just loved all that sound that they got, and the bass parts they were playing. They were intricate. They were very listenable, and you had to listen twice to think, what are they doing there? Wow, that's great bass playing. So
I always love the bass lines. That takes me on the trip. I follow. I don't know why my head does it, but I follow what the bass is doing. It makes things so much more interesting.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah, and I love listening to Bach as well. I mean, listen, he's famous for his bass lines. They're just so listenable, and that's a great thing about having a musical ear is you can actually pinpoint, and focus in on one instrument completely. I don't know if people that aren't like myself. I'll need to ask my sister. Have you listened to the cellos?
What was that phrase again? She can't sing for toffee?
Toffee, yeah.
We'll probably get letters from her on that, but
thank you, DC. Here's the second album, also with a different cover in the US. And January, which unfortunately didn't do so well in the US because we're stupid. But did do great in the UK. I guess your biggest hit there. Have you heard David Cassidy's cover of that?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, he did a nice job.
I actually met him and spoke to him after he'd done it. He said to me, he says, when I heard that song, I had it on the turntable and I must have played it 100 times. He said, I just loved it so much. I had to record it.
Oh,
wow. What was I going to... So did Pilot come to this? Did you tour the States? Were you able to head over here?
No, unfortunately, we were badly managed, and we only toured the UK. Despite the fact that January was #1 in Australia for 9 weeks or so, it was something ridiculous. So we were badly managed, but there again, that helped. That pulled me away from Pilot into the session work that I enjoyed so much. It was the only way to continue working with enjoyment and fun and no, I'm not getting ripped off here, was to actually just forget Pilot or not put as much energy into it. So that contributed to our demise. We all wanted to move on, and lucky enough, we got our foot in the door with session work, and that took over completely and led me to work with some of the people that I've admired for years and years. And there's no greater thrill than that diversity of musicians that I've worked with. As you say, Camel is slightly different from what you'd expect me to be involved in. It's just all that diversity that I loved so much, and the challenge as well.
Camel had some very melodic moments.
Sure. Oh, sure. Yeah. But I mean, you had to have been young though, and questioned the fact that we have some massive hits here, and we're not doing anything but tooling around the UK. I mean, at the time, you had to have said, why aren't we going to the US? Why aren't we going to Australia? Why aren't we doing this and that? Yeah, and I guess that frustrated the heck out of you to the point where you were like,
Yeah, and it caused a lot of friction. But our management company were empire building, so we were kind of neglected a bit. Well, they built their empire, and it did crumble eventually, and I was quite glad to see the back of them. And so it was sad for Pilot, but Billy Lyle decided to go solo, and they and the management company encouraged them because they could see another recording deal there where they would be able to skim the profits. And so, and Billy was encouraged by that. They even changed his name to William and tried to put him over as a kind of dandy, kind of posh guy, So I don't think they realized that Billy and I, Billy was gay, by the way, and it eventually led to his demise. He sadly passed with AIDS in 1989. So he started going into different social circles from me, and we kind of drifted apart. But really, the magic came from the fact that Billy would say, I'm going to write another song for next week, have another one ready yourself. And he was writing great songs that I can see why he wasn't happy, because his songs were not getting released as singles. My songs were very commercial, and Billy's songs were intricate and very accomplished.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, Solo Casting is a brilliant, brilliant album. It takes a few listens because it's kind of out there.
It's out there.
But once you connect with it, though, it's like, wow, you can see how incredibly talented he was.
And he was doing that with Pilot as well. You know, the song he wrote called Passion Peace, and the Da Vinci song, they're so accomplished. And he also did all the string arrangements, the orchestral work for these songs. He was a very gifted man.
Wow.
On this album in particular, because this one is probably your most adventurous album of the four, I would say.
We recorded that in Canada.
Hence the song Canada, which I always loved, by the way.
Yeah, that was a big hit in South America for some reason.
But not in Canada?
It was in Canada as well.
Oh,
and in fact, it was put forward for the Montreal Olympics, which happened in 1976, I think. And they said they would use it if I would change my nationality and become Canadian. Which I was
no. I want to ask you, because one of my favorite all-time artists is Chris Rainbow, and I got to know him a little bit through letter before he tragically passed. And I know you must have worked with him at least through Alan Parsons' project. What are your recollections of Chris Rainbow? I really would love to know.
It was myself and Ian that recommended that Chris work with Alan. We told Alan, you've got to hear this guy. He's just a genius in the studio. You know, all these beautiful harmonies that you hear on his records, they just came out the top of his head. You know, he would just say to Alan, how many tracks can I have? Alan would say, you can have 6. Okay. And he would go down and he would just sing anything, you know, and then it would build up to layers of this beautiful arrangement. And you think, did he have all that? Did he hear all that in his head before he started? You know, just a wonderful, a genius. And he had a terrible stammer or stutter. Well, I don't know what you say in the States.
Yes, stutter.
Either one.
Yeah. And you would talk to him and he would be like that. And he was even brave enough to go on a radio show and talk to them about his stammer. And
Wow.
it was fantastic to listen to. You had people crying and phoning in and saying how brave of you to do such a thing as that. But as soon as he went into the studio and started to sing, he was an angel. It was brilliant.
It is amazing that so many, not that a whole lot of singers, but a lot of famous singers who stammered when they spoke, when they sang, it was gone.
Yeah.
And that's a phenomenon that I would love to understand a little bit more, but it's pretty amazing.
And you know, Chris could put on different accents. He was good at accents. He was really good at an American accent. And when he put on his American accent, he would read things from a newspaper and say, in the heart of the steaming metropolis, and he would go in a speech and faultless, absolutely faultless.
Wow.
And you were around for 10 Alan Parsons Project albums?
Yeah.
So all the hits, games people play, time, everything. That's all. Yeah, that's all pre 1988.
Yeah. I even sang "Let's Talk About Me."
Yeah.
Don't know if you know that one.
Yep.
I sang
Indeed.
about 5 songs with them. And I only left when Elton John approached me and asked me to join his band and do Live Aid with him. And I was always on Alan and saying, we've got to tour. But Alan didn't see a place for him while touring unless he was up at the control room. Or, you know, he couldn't see himself on the stage doing anything because he didn't actually play in the band.
Yeah, right.
I know now that he goes on stage with an acoustic guitar around his neck and
That's true.
Mimes to the keyboards and whatnot. But what am I saying?
2 albums with Kate Bush. That
Yeah,
had a different
I
experience
gotta.
as
I
well.
mean, like most guys my age, and I'm the same age as she is. I had a massive crush on her. But more than that, I love that. I mean, The Kick Inside is still one of my all-time favorite albums. It's just so brilliant. When you first met her, what were your impressions?
Oh, I was kind of pre-warned, from Andrew Pearl, who produced the album. Andrew did a couple of string arrangements for Pilot as well. And he said, we've got this girl, she's just fantastic. She's just signed to EMI. So I want you to play bass for her on this album. We all went along to Air Studios, and Andrew just said to her, go and sing the first song that we're going to do. And he handed us sheets that he had pre-written out. And we were all looking at the chord structures, and suddenly this voice and this beautiful, faultless piano playing. She never made one mistake, and he asked her to sing it 2 or 3 times. We were just gobsmacked, all of us, and just thought, this is going to be a good session.
Wow. And of course, you mentioned Elton John and the gold albums in the back wall behind you. And what did you do with McCartney? What's your association with McCartney?
McCartney wrote a song called Mullock and Tyre, which is
right.
A very Scottish influence. And he knew we were in Studio 3 with Alan Parsons recording iRobot or something. And McCartney walked in and said, I've noticed the Scottish voices. Will you come along and sing on my song, and I'll give you a wee dram? That was his words. I'll give you a wee dram. So I never got that dram, by the way, but
never got the dram. You heard it right here, Paul. Are you a Scotch drinker? Is that a question we can ask someone from Scotland?
Well, surprisingly, I only kind of took a liking to it about 5 years ago, to single malts, I must say.
Single malts, okay.
Before then, I never really had a taste for spirit. I'm a wine drinker, really. So, spirit, I wasn't really into spirit that much. But yeah, I do drink whiskey now.
Diet sodas as far as I go. There you go.
Well, that was a surreal experience, standing beside McCartney and singing on one of his songs. And and it's difficult to take your eyes off him. And again, it's another moment for me pinching myself. Is this really happening? Because it's one of your dreams. I wish I could do that. I wish that would happen. And then it happens. And you just think, wow.
Well, we've had a few artists on the show here who, kicked off their careers because of the Beatles, and who went through a career and then ended up working momentarily with McCartney. And I mean, that you would talk about a full circle, mind-blowing experience where you're influenced and this is everything here as a youngster. And then all the way down the road, here you are in a room singing background vocals with Paul standing right there.
It must have been an out-of-body experience.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not a musician, but I did get a chance to interview Brian Wilson. This was about 25 years ago, when his Your Imagination album came out, and I'm sitting literally 2 feet from him in his house, and I had a complete out-of-body experience. I could not believe it couldn't be me. I had to be watching somebody else doing that.
I know the thrill of meeting Brian Wilson because I know a guy called Probin Gregory who plays.
Oh, yeah.
You know him?
Yeah, we know Probin.
And he played in a band called the Wonderments.
Yes, we know them too.
And apparently they played Magic in their set. And Probin got in touch with me and said, we're coming to Glasgow. Would you like to come along to the gig? And, you can meet Brian. I said, yeah. He says, Brian loves Magic, by the way. Wow. So, I got to meet Brian as well. And Probin walked in his dressing room with me and said, Brian, this is the guy that wrote Magic. And Brian said, you wrote Magic? He said, I wish I'd written that song.
Oh wow.
I'd have that tattooed on my arm. I would just Put that statement right on my arm,
Oh,
right here.
absolutely. And when I said, "Can I have my photo taken?" He said, "Yeah, sure." So I sat beside him, and I noticed he wasn't looking at the camera; he was looking at me. And he said to me, "Never believe it's not so."
Aw.
It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I was so thrilled with that. I've actually put out a solo album called "Under the Sun," and I've written that story inside the album.
Nice. Oh,
Now, as you mentioned, you've worked with a lot of people, but one of the most fascinating ones for me was this. How did that happen? Oh God, it's the glare. It's Beagle Hat. Yes.
Oh, Beagle Hat. Yeah. Wow.
How did that come about?
I was living in Spain for a while. I lived in Spain for 3 years. And while I was living there, I got an email come in, or a message. I don't know how they got in touch with me, from this Japanese band saying, "We've written an album and we've written a song that we think would suit your voice. Would you sing it for us?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, send it to me." So they sent me the song, and I really liked it. It's called Casgabarl. I think it's the first track on that album. Casgabarl, about his hometown. And they asked me, of course, to come up with lyrics for it, because they were singing it in Japanese. And they explained exactly what the song was about. And I was lucky enough to be able to complete a lyric that made sense in English and rhymed, because I don't think they're the end of each line doesn't rhyme with the next line. So,
right.
But apart from that, it's Japanese. So that's how it started. And when I sent them back the song, they were really, really happy with it and said, "Will you sing all the songs on the album for us?" And I said, "Yeah." So I got involved with a record company as well. And it's funny you should mention them, because today I was just working on another song from Hisa Tanaka. He's the main guy there. We still have a relationship. We're still writing together. And over the last month, I've done 2 songs with them. They're now called Sheep. They had to change their name. One of the guys left and he owned the name Beagle Hat. So they're now called Sheep. We've already put out an album, David Paton and Sheep. And it's great. It just goes on and on, you know.
Oh, that's the one that's sold out, isn't it?
I'll send you a copy.
Oh man, I have to.
Yes, I'll send you.
Somebody piped in. Did you ever work with Jerry Rafferty?
No, I wish I had.
Yeah, we're going to get questions about every Scottish artist.
No,
hey, listen, I was a bodyguard for Woody Wood of the Bay City Rollers up at Roller Fest, so that's my connection to the.
Wow!
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, you know, the Verdons, Bullseye, they put on Roller Fest, and Woody and Duncan were there, but they needed a heavy, and I'm 6'3", 240 pounds. So they said, "Mark, can you make sure these women don't tear him apart?" Okay. I couldn't. I mean, David, your accent is a nice lilting Scottish accent. It's easy to understand. I couldn't understand a thing Woody said.
Well, we're both from the same town, the same city. We're both from Edinburgh. I don't know.
I don't know.
I lived in England for 10 years. And
it softened you a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
I found I had to pronounce where I can launch into a broad Edinburgh accent. You wouldn't understand it. You know, just like Woody probably doesn't make the effort, you know.
No. It's good stuff. And Magic, the David Paton story. Is that still in print? Can people get their hands on that? So, you know, we can go into more in-depth detail of everything we talked about here on the show tonight. But it's a book. It's on your website. I think they can probably buy it via your website.
Sure.
I'm just running it here. It's pilot-magic.com. It's running across the bottom of the screen. And except for the things that David wants that are sold out, which he'll drop you an email about that later, there is a wonderful book, Magic, the David Paton story.
I started that about 20 years ago. I just suddenly realized that, you know, I'm going to have family come along, grandkids, great grandkids, I'd like them to know a little bit about what I did in my life, because I think magic will still be here, and when I'm well gone, you know. And so I just wanted them to know what my life was like.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. I just started to jot down various things that I could remember of the people that I worked with and what kind of life it's like to be a professional musician. I think it fascinates a lot of people, just that lifestyle. Anyway,
it would have been nice. You probably thought at that time it would have been nice had I kept a journal every single day. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
I look at what Michael Palin from Monty Python. Every day of his working life, he kept a journal. So all of his journaling has turned into books, and there's virtually every single thing he did of every single day. And I thought, oh Lord, I wish I would have done the names and the people that I've long since forgotten. Yeah. What a wonderful thing.
I heard that it was either Bill Wyman or Charlie Watts did a similar thing.
Yeah. Well.
So David, what are you doing now musically?
Well, I'm still collaborating with my Japanese friends, and I'm still writing, recording. I love all that. I don't think that'll ever leave me. I write songs, and I'm still pleased with them. Now that music technology has moved on substantially, I feel I can produce songs that sound like, oh, this is a real record. I just think I'm really happy with what technology has done for writers like myself, and not to say, oh, we're on the clock here, we need to get this done. I can just wander into the studio anytime I want and finish things off. So that's what I'm doing. I have retired from touring. I am 74, and it might be okay for McCartney and Mick Jagger to carry on into their 80s, but I'm not Mick Jagger or McCartney.
You know how many people have taken care of them too? I mean, I don't even think they walk to the stage. I think they're carried to the stage, then presented, then they walk on, do their thing, and then
that's what carry that weight is actually.
Yeah, that's it's a little bit different story, I think, for that level, but it doesn't mean to say that you might get back on stage, say at I don't know, maybe the Cavern for an IPO festival. I'm just snowballing.
Hey. Yeah. I mean, don't put David on the spot here. Let me do that later.
You know how wonderful that would be. I'm just saying it would be incredible.
I've said no to a few things ever since the COVID outbreak. I've just thought, and I'll just finish with it now. I was working with a guy called Albert Hammond. I don't know if you know that name.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, he had a big hit in the States actually.
Mm-hmm.
He did. Free Electric Band.
Well, It Never Rains in Southern California was his biggest hit.
Was the biggest hit, yeah.
And Free Electric Band was a little bit of a lesser hit, but yeah.
I'd been working with him and touring for 3 years with Albert, and when COVID hit, and that put an end to the tour. And I was about to depart and do a tour of Japan with Pilot, but that was knocked on the head, and I haven't bothered revitalizing it. I've just said no to some of the opportunities that have come along. And I think, I started touring when I was 16, and it's a long career for me. And really, the thought of sitting in a van for 5 hours, getting one city to the next, doesn't appeal to me anymore. All for 2 hours on a stage at night. It's a long day, and I think I can be more productive here at home in the studio than being out on the road.
Well, we sure hope you continue enjoying the things that you do and continue to make music, because not only David and I, but there's so many people that enjoy what you've done with so much over your career, and we love the fact that you're still chuffed to do it, and you keep doing it.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to.
Hopefully, Taylor Swift's grandmother takes Ozempic. and that leads to a connection where you're writing her next hit. So,
what an absolute pleasure to have you on the show tonight, David. It's like it's a nice bucket list moment for me. especially the wheelhouse of growing up and being a teen in the early 70s. Music like yours just is the soundtrack to my youth, and takes me right back there, and I so greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, what
Thanks.
Mark said, absolutely.
Thank you, because I've really enjoyed talking to both of you. It's been good for me, and I
And
kind of think this might be my very last interview, so that's a good way.
We doubt that very.
We doubt that, but we're happy you're on Material Issues, and it's archived forever. Someone just said thank you for being a part of the Embers of Aloha.
That must be Lisa. No?
Oh,
Lisa.
Wow,
Yeah. Lisa Michaels was part of putting that together, and Lisa, I don't know if you saw earlier, but I did mention the peanut butter and ketchup dip that we talked about. But yeah, you were part of the Embers of Aloha project, which is a wonderful project for helping to put together by our good friend Michael McCartney and the victims of the fires. Yeah, special, very much so. Yeah, thank you for that. But yeah, stay well. Take good care. Keep creating. Never say no to popping up in a small club somewhere. Oh, I don't know, in Liverpool. And I'm sorry, Dave.
I might meet you one day there, and
I hope so. I hope so.
It's awesome. It's awesome. But take good care. Thank you so much, David. God bless you. And everybody check out the pilot-magic.com.
Yeah. This was truly an honor. I mean, when you're a teenager and you're hearing these songs, you never think that you're going to, meet the people who brought you such wonderful music, and for this to happen, and to have it turn out that you're actually a good guy as well, because I've met a few who weren't. Thank you so much, so much for appearing here.
It's been great. Thank you. All the best, guys.
Have a great night. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay.
Take care, David.
All the best. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. That was fun. What a genuinely happy person. He was smiling through the whole interview, and you almost never see that.
That was just that was golden. That was
an interesting perspective. He's one of the few musicians who achieved fame in a band who really didn't want to be there. After a while, especially when things weren't working out, they couldn't do their tours and whatnot. And he'd rather have met other people who he admired and play on their records. That is unique to anybody we've spoken with, for sure.
And that's amazing, coming from us as fans and looking back on bands of the 60s and 70s, and a band like Pilot that had a monster hit and had a couple other moderate hits, to find out that they didn't get an opportunity to tour where things were happening.
Yeah,
I guess I just assumed that, well, if you had a huge hit like that, you must have toured the States,
especially Australia, if they were that big there. I mean, and actually, I was looking at the at their chart run in Australia, and it's quite impressive. So why they didn't get to play down there?
Well, as you said, mismanagement. But
I know you would. They had. Everyone could have made a lot of money, and they would have had so much fun, and yet, didn't happen.
Absolutely, but man, fortunate you got a great get there, David, with David Paton of Pilot here for the Material Issues, which it's kind of funny. He said this could be my last interview.
I sure hope not.
No, we sure hope not, but you never know. I mean, life is funny, and that's why we appreciate the people that we get to talk to here on Material Issues, and archive it forever on YouTube and Facebook. Materialissues.com. Make sure you subscribe and join us here on Facebook on the groups. Tell all your friends, because we've got a lot of great things coming up in the near future. I mean, we're loaded.
Indeed.
We're loaded.
We do indeed, and we have. God, now I'm realizing I didn't bring in some records I should have shown.
Okay. Yeah.
That's okay. We'll show them later. Next week, speaking of hit makers, our pleasure.
You're welcome.
Those of you who watched American Bandstand and the like will remember Switch into Glide, This Beat Goes On, a big hit by the Canadian band The Kings. And next week on Material Issues, next Wednesday, we're going to be on Wednesday at our normal time for the foreseeable future. If
Right.
obviously if anything changes, we'll post about it on my page and the Material Issues page. But next week we have the Kings, actually the two main men of the Kings, Dave Diamond and Mr. Zero. And they've got a brand new album out, which we'll be talking about. So yeah, that should be fun. And I've had the pleasure of meeting.
Yeah, I'm just
I've
thinking.
had the pleasure of I've had the pleasure of meeting them. I've had the pleasure of having the Kings play IPO, and I've had the mixture of pleasure and terror of being on stage with them when they did Switch and the Glide. I would always sing the chorus with them because I don't remember any lyrics to anybody's song, but the chorus, even a moron like me can remember that. So yeah, so next week, Dave Diamond and Mr. Zero of the Kings. Material Issues. On March 6th, another one of our Gem Records favorite acts, The Sins. Their lead singer, Cindy Dawson, will be probably, this interview may even air from LAX because she'll be getting off a plane just before airtime.
Wow.
And the Sins are coming to LA, and they're going to be doing two great shows at the Viper Room, the legendary Viper Room, and then at Redwood Bar, which is where we do IPO. So it's going to be great. So Cindy Dawson of the Sins, who will have a brand new album out 2 days later on Gem Records. So we'll see her on March 6th. On March 13th, it's always great when young people carry the torch for power pop.
Yeah.
And this gentleman from Australia is doing just that. His name's Wesley Fuller, and he's got his second album coming out right around that time, All Fuller, No Filler. And indeed it is. I've heard it, and it's great. This guy knows his way around a hook like very few other people. Yeah. It's a wonderful album, and we're looking forward to having Wesley Fuller from Australia on Material Issues on the 13th of March. Well, the 14th of March for him, because it'll be the morning of.
We can ask him about lottery numbers and things like that. It's great.
That's a good point. How come nobody ever does that?
Nobody ever does that. Who won the Grammy Awards last night? We can bet on it.
Really amazing. It's such an untapped resource.
It really is.
Nobody ever does it. Anyway, so on March 13th, Wesley Fuller on Material Issues. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to love that new album, All Fuller, No Filler. It really is great. We don't have anyone yet on the 20th or 27th. Maybe it'll just be Mark and me. Maybe it'll be somebody else. Who knows?
Maybe
you never know with us at Material.
Going on, yeah, you don't know. We'll have some fun.
We don't know.
We don't know,
and we love it that way. On April 3rd, those of you who are soft pop fans, and I'm certainly one of them. I love 60s soft pop so much, and a couple of my favorite bands who did that style are the Sagittarius and the Millennium, the bands that were fronted by the late great Kurt Betcher. But he had a lot of help, and probably the most central of his help came from our guest on April 3rd, Sandy Salisbury.
Oh, and there he is.
No, that's not Sandy. This is the call I have to take.
All right, David, I'm going to finish up and sign off. You go take your call.
Okay.
So
you can
yes,
carry on, Mark.
David's got a very important call, but yeah, we had a wonderful show tonight with David Paton of Pilot. If you missed it, if you're tuning in right now, you can check it out as soon as we end the stream over on materialissues.com. That's the YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Send everybody you know over there to do that. That'll help us out. Or join the group here on Facebook. That's just as good. This is episode number 143. So there's 143 fantastic episodes out there and a lot of great guests coming up. A lot of things going on. And we've got so many irons in the fire of some really cool guests. We just gotta nail down the dates and everything that goes with it. So, hey, we thank everybody for joining us every week. David and I do this just out of fun. We hate to say, we thank our fans, because that's a little too pretentious. We thank our friends for joining us. You're all our friends, and We do this because we love it. We dig it. We love hanging out with each other, talking about stuff, all our friends and all the guests we really do appreciate here on Material Issues. So for that, we'll see you next Wednesday at our normal time, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, when we've got the Kings switching to Glide. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you next week. Cheers.